we want to welcome you and thank you. Take notes, because that's what I'm going to ask everyone here to do. Whenever we do a presentation, we have the saying, never trust your brain. There's too much data trying to get in, right? There's too much stuff. There's too much, the monkey mind, as Maria was saying this morning. So what we do is we encourage you to write, and we ask you to write because it allows the conscious brain to slow down for thoughts from the subconscious to come into consciousness. Sounds really fancy. It's really not. It's just that our brain can go through so many thoughts in a second. Just like, how fast can I talk? I can talk really fast. But when I write, I must slow down. We can type really fast. But when I write, I slow down. So now some people say, I hate writing. I don't want to take notes. I'm only going to take notes on my phone. Okay, well, take notes on your phone. That's 10 billion times better than not doing and taking any notes. Now, if I say something in here that you go, oh, that can't be true. Anything that you go, oh, I don't know about that, write it down. Because it's those things that we say, that's not for me. I'm not a morning person. I'm a Virgo. Virgos don't do that. I'm the middle child. Middle children don't do that. You know what I'm saying? We have all these kind of stories. Oh, I came from this type of religious background, and so I'm hindered. There's just a bunch of stories. But if you hear me say something, you go, wow, that's really challenging. Write it down. Because that's where breakthroughs happen, right? I'll never forget, as an author, I was a jock, and Reverend Kimberly said that I played basketball in college, and all I cared about was sports. It's the only reason I went to school. I didn't go to school to get smart. I didn't go to school to get a degree. Because you were a volleyball player in school. And did you do the same thing? Let's just play sports and, yeah, if I have to go to class, I'll go, right? But I want this to be something that you're filled with passion, and I want this to be something that's life-changing. And when I was going to start, before I started writing books, I had an assistant that said to me, oh my God, you have the greatest stories. You would be a wonderful author. And I just said, I'm a jock. God's honest truth. I said, I don't have a creative bone in my body. Isn't that wild? Yeah. Like, what we're going to talk about today, God, me, you, and success, is about really exploring that internal part of us that we don't think we are. That we don't think we're worthy for deep love, or worthy for financial ease, or worthy of a healthy body, or worthy of great friendships and support, or worthy of an incredible community that reaches its arms out in all these different ways to help support your growth. Well, a lot of times we don't believe we're worthy. How would someone know that they are fully worthy for everything God wants them to have and for all of the joy and all of the faith? How would you know if you're worthy? What would differentiate someone who is really worthy of having a deep connection with God, so deep, so unbreakable? How would we know we're worthy? Help me out. Yes?
You'd have to know you're not codependent.
You'd have to know you're not codependent. Wow, that is an awesome answer. Now, what does that mean to you to be not codependent?
You are worthy.
Okay, so a codependent person, that's amazing you said that. You know why that's so amazing? Is that 50% of my work as a counselor is in codependency. That's why that is so freaking amazing that you said that. What's your first name?
Jude.
Jude. Wow. So what does it mean to be codependent? To be codependent means we don't really have our own thought processes that we follow without blinking. We look for validation from the outside world before we say, I believe in X. I believe in Y. We want people to like us, and so if we have a little edge to us, a little something that's unique and different, instead of like sharing it, that our uniqueness and differences, we put it in a little box. So let's say you come to one of these, and I've heard this millions of times from this church, so let me just precede the statement with this. People will come here and they'll say, I had no idea a church could be this fun, this energizing, this supportive, and this loving. You know what I'm saying? So they had belief systems in the back that church is boring, church is dogmatic, church is can I get a yes?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so those thoughts are the thoughts of a codependent person, like, I'm never going to like church. Why? Well, I had a bad experience. It's just like remember what Maria said? She had a negative belief system about marriage. And so that negative belief system kept repeating itself with the people that she was chasing after and marrying and divorcing and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden she realized she was worthy. And what happened when she realized she was worthy? She got wrong. Right? Like when she decided she found someone for 28 years. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So, my belief system is that we are all that, but we need to find a way to get closer to that God essence, that spirit. And I'm going to ask you what God means to you in a minute. But my belief is that the success that we create in life, and we're talking about in every area, deep friendships, high self-confidence, high self-esteem, financial freedom. Now, that doesn't mean being a multimillionaire. To some people it does. To others it doesn't have to be. But, there's something amazing about not having to worry about paying a bill. Can I get a yes?
Yes.
There's something incredible about, at the end of the week, knowing that you have plenty to cover your bills and then you have some extra. Does that feel good?
Yes.
We teach a course on financial freedom, and our definition of financial freedom is a little unique. We say financial freedom is simply emotional freedom around money. That's all it is. It's emotional freedom. It's not that you're a multimillionaire, although if that's your choice, that's your choice. Be a multimillionaire. I honor all that. But financial freedom is really figuring out how to take care of your expenses in a respectable way, how to take care of your income in a respectable way, so at the end of the month you are chill. You are relaxed. So, and now, how does one become worthy for financial freedom or emotional freedom around money? How does that happen? What would someone have to do to feel worthy about being financially free? Okay, you have to believe, but what else? What would take belief 10 billion steps higher? Vision, faith, action. So, when you say, I am going to prove I'm worthy of financial freedom in God's eyes, we go, well, I'm going to do first? I'm going to take 30 days and I'm going to write down every penny I spend on my phone or a notebook. Okay? And this is one of the exercises we give in this course. So I would write this down if you're interested at all about financial freedom. Okay? Now, there's much more to it, but this is a crucial one. For 30 days, write down everything that you spend, what it was. So it's like coffee at David Buck's. I don't want to get any brand names in here. So I had coffee at David Buck's, and it was $3.75. And then in the third column, you'd put, was it a want or a need? This is the step one to financial freedom. Okay. Now, I want to tell you this from my belief system. God wants you financially free. I'm not going to say He wants you to be a millionaire. I have not a clue. But I do know He wants you to be emotionally cool with money. Can I get a yes?
Yes.
Okay, because He knows that decreases stress, and He knows that'll help your body be healthier, and He wants you to have it all. I do believe that. But it's not just an amount that He wants you to have. He wants you to be at peace. There is nothing greater in this world than to be at freaking peace. Can I get a yes?
Yes.
Like at peace with your friends, at peace with your partner. Now, there are times that peace is going to get shaken. Remember what happened to The Rock today? His peace was shaken, baby. He had a goal, he had a dream, and it wasn't coming true. It didn't mean it wasn't going to, right? But what did our friend The Rock do? Well, he had great faith, and he praised God every day. Now, he did go into depression where he wasn't praising God that much, right? But then that little spark in his heart said, come on, dude, wake up. Get to the surface. Get to the light, right? The surface is the light. Like, get up there. You need to shine like God sees you shining because He wants you to shine. And I firmly believe that. And so when you start to do, let's just say with the financial freedom thing, when you start to do your expenses at the end of the month, you may be surprised at how many wants are there versus needs. And if there's any stress around money, I really encourage you to do this. Because what's going to happen, step one is to do a 30-day recall and to see. And then at the end of every day, you add up and you go, okay, I had $25 worth of wants and I had $15 worth of needs. Okay, that's just one day. How long is this going to continue? Am I going to start to decrease my wants and quit spending the money on wants that are not necessary? Now, a want is anything that you want. A need is what you have to survive. So let me differentiate that, okay? A want is anything you want, and a need is exactly what you need to survive. This is where we want to go. We want this to be so important that these start to slip away. And as these wants slip away and you start spending less and less on things that aren't necessary, they're just wants. Like, instead of bringing bottled water to work, we go and spend $2.79 at a grocery store or convenience store for it. Well, that $2.79 could have easily been saved. And now that doesn't sound like much, $2.79. Multiply that times 5 times, 300, and then do that by 10 years. What was the amount? Just teasing. But like you wanna go, oh my gosh, that's how much no wonder why I'm stressed. And again, let's go back to God, me, and you. I believe God wants you in every area of your life to find your path that has the least amount of resistance and stress. Now, as I said earlier, that doesn't mean you're not going to hit periods of time that are stressful and you're going to have to go to the wall and you're going to have great faith, just like the rock had, right? But overall, I believe that if you and I look at our relationship with God and you want to strengthen it, it will lead you to success, but you're going to have to do some things that may not be that comfortable. This is one of the things, whenever I talk about steps that'll make you uncomfortable to get closer to God, to be more successful, I can always have a few people after me, and they'll say, I thought that was supposed to be a motivational lecture, and you're making me do work, and you're making me record my expenses, and you're making me, and I go, yeah, I know. But if you just come in here, and you guys listen, and you don't take any notes, and you don't do anything different when you go home, well, I hope I can entertain you for a couple hours. I mean, I hope that it's going to be worth your time. But what I would rather have is I'd rather have you in here actively engaged and going home with a plan to change. Because to me, this whole lecture is about getting closer to the divine. The closer you are, that doesn't mean you won't have problems, challenges, heartbreak. It doesn't mean you won't get disease. It doesn't mean, but when we have that closer connection, we have a tendency to ride the wave of life with a little less stress. How many people know the name Bethany Hamilton? Can you share who Bethany Hamilton is?
Isn't she the one that was the surfer? Yeah, the kind of arm taken off by a shark?
Yeah. Bethany Hamilton, a number of years ago, was a surfing competition, right? She lives in Hawaii, and she fell off her board, and a shark bit her arm off. This young woman just came out with a brand new movie. It was released 2 weeks ago about her life. I'm getting chills right now. If you want to read or hear about a woman of faith, you got to watch the movie, get her book, go Google her, get on her website, get in her, I think her newsletter is like Coconut Telegraph, something like, a Jimmy Buffett type of a thing, But really, because I put myself in her shoes, and I'm going to ask you guys this question. If you were surfing and you fell off and a shark bit your arm off, raise your hand if you'd be willing to get back on the board as soon as you're out of the hospital. We have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4. 4 people. Okay. What is stopping the rest of us from getting back on the board? Fear. Okay. One of the greatest ways to dispel fear is what? Is to exchange it for what? Love. Begins with the same letter. Thank you. What is faith?
Believing. Believing something you can't see.
Thank you. Faith is belief in the yet unseen. Please write that down. When it's so easy when things are going good to have great faith and to talk about, I have so much faith in God, and my angels, and I a couple months ago or a month ago when I was here, I talked about an experience I had with the Archangel Gabriel. Gabriel has been in my life forever. When I got married, and then went through a beautiful divorce. One of my best friends for my wedding gift gave me this massive statue of Gabriel. And it's just like one of the most touching gifts I've ever gotten in my life. So are we connecting with that kind of source that comes from God or angels? Or are we doing things, and after this seminar, I'm going to give you an assignment. As a matter of fact, let me give it right now. Write this down. Let me write this down. I want you to do some homework for me. So here's the plan. When we're done, I would love it in 24 hours if we could do it. I want you to email me in 24 hours your new plan to create a deeper connection to God, and it must have action steps that are measurable. Okay? So here we go. So it's not just about, I believe I'm closer to God. I want to know what you're going to do differently to make that belief real. Because saying it and feeling it and having faith is one thing, but when you have a plan of action that you say, here's what I'm going to do. So my email address is david@davidessel.com. David@davidessel, E-S-S-E-L. Hey there. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late. I had to work.
We're just going to start over. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone this afternoon.
To your homework assignment just given.
That's right. Okay, so the homework assignment is, I would love for you to email me in 24 hours what your action plan is to get closer to God. Okay, or you say Holy Spirit, or you say universal light, or whatever the word. If you don't like the word God, I'm cool with that. Whatever you want to use. But I want to know what you're going to do differently. And it could be something like, I'm going to come to this service every Sunday instead of 3 times a month, or instead of once a month, or instead of twice a month. I'm going to volunteer for this church every week instead of once a month. You know what I'm saying? Like it's got to be action steps that are measurable. When we talk about faith, belief in the yet unseen, too many people believe that faith is a mental work. And it is part mental. But when you have faith and you haven't seen what you want yet, you will do the work and do the work and do the work, even though you ain't seeing anything. Can I get a yes?
Yes.
When I was here a couple weeks ago, I mentioned to you guys that, and this is one of the greatest experiences I had with my own faith, is that I wrote books for 20 years before we got any recognition. But at the end of writing every book, I knew it was going to become a bestseller. It never did for 20 years. And I wrote another one. And I put it out there, right? And it didn't become another one bestseller. But I thought it was gonna. So I wrote another one. That one didn't either. I wrote for 20 years, and every one I said, I have faith. This is going to be a number one bestseller. I was the rock. And I'm sitting there shimmying underneath the sand. I'm going, oh my Lord, another one. Because sometimes, especially back when I first started writing, it would take me a year and a half to write a book. And now I'm going to tell you something about miracles later on, how that has changed over the years. And I really believe some of the most majestic changes in my life have happened because I never gave up. My sobriety took 25 plus years. I knew I had problems for 25 years. I mean, I can be thick. My mom used to tell me that all the time. But I'm not as thick to wake up feeling the way I woke up for 25 straight years and saying I didn't have a problem. Can I get a yes?
Yes.
I woke up every day knowing I had a problem. And I had faith at some point that I was going to heal. But let me tell you the difference between the books and my relationship with God and addiction and my relationship with God. Because this is a really important part. With my books and my faith, believing in the yet unseen, that something would break and I'd finally get a number one bestseller, I kept writing. It didn't happen, and it didn't happen, and it didn't happen, but it never stopped me from writing. Addiction was different. I had faith I was going to get clean, but I never did the homework I just asked you to do for 25 plus years. So I would get up in the morning with an affirmation, and I'm going to be sober today, and I'm all excited, but it was all here. There was nothing in the world. There was no action, right? There was nothing. So I was living on faith, and I believed I could get clean and sober at some point, but I wasn't doing anything uncomfortable to get me sober. Does that make sense? And if it's a health issue, if it's a relationship issue, it is not an outside job. It's an inside job. And what I found was, again, going back to the books, I really believed that I was going to be blessed with a number one bestseller at some point in my life, and I wasn't going to give up, and it worked. And now the last 4 books have become number one bestsellers, which we are so happy. But what if I stopped it 18 years ago? Right? What if I said, oh, I guess I'm not meant to be a number one bestseller? Have you ever heard that? Yeah. Like, well, I've done this, but I guess if God wanted me to be a number one bestseller, he would have it right now. No. No, I think it was Maria that said something up here earlier today about, the timing is going to be totally different, okay? We want it now. Well, maybe if there's someone in here that doesn't want it now, but I've never met nobody that's never wanted it now. Can I get a yes? Yes. Did you follow what I just said?
Yes.
Everyone wants it now. And I understand it, right? It's part of the human condition. And instead of going, if I have great faith, or if you have great faith with love or health, money, your spiritual path, you want to get closer to God, if we truly have great faith, we will see us doing the work daily to make whatever we have faith about come true. We'll see ourselves doing it. That's the proof of faith. If we're not doing it, Reverend Kimberly, did you have something you want to share?
Nope.
Just amen. It's just an amen. Let's say you want to become a minister. You can have all the faith you want, but if you don't go through and learn the process, the odds of it happening are pretty small. Can I get a yes? Yes. Right? But if you want to be a minister and you say, okay, the course is 2 years long, but I've got to do it part-time, which means it'll be 6 years long, how bad do you want it? Right? How bad do you want it? Because if you really want it, you'll say 6 years is fine. That's what I want it that bad, and I believe that I can have an impact in this world at a higher level as a minister, or a higher level as a volunteer here in the church, or a higher level working with children that need assistance, special assistance. We will do the work. But what they say is that prayer without work is dead, right? Faith without work is dead. It's like, isn't that an interesting part of that equation? So again, let me remind you what your homework assignment is. I would love it within, let's write 8 p.m. tomorrow night Eastern time, okay? 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night. I would love an email from everyone in here saying, here's my new path to create a deeper connection to God. And it must be physical action steps that can be measurable. So remember when I said earlier, that means going to church 4 times a month instead of once that you normally go. So you'd write that down. I normally go once a month to boost my relationship with God and to create greater success in all areas of life. I'm going to start doing this with the church, and I'm going to start doing this on my own, and I'm going to start doing this in the community. You don't have to overwhelm yourself, but we do need something solid to follow. When we hear, some of the profound stories, Nelson Mandela turned into a great man of faith with a great connection to God, but it didn't start out that way. He was a peaceful protester with the African National Congress, and when the peaceful protesting didn't pull it off, he went and became a terrorist, and he started blowing up buildings. I mean, he didn't get put in prison for 27 years because he was praying too much. In prison, he does something that blew all of his people's minds. Everyone who was in prison with him, from the ANC, I think there was 8 or 12 of them or something like that, is that he got a calling to connect with the white guards and to learn Afrikaans, which is the language of the white Dutch settlers in Africa. And his cellmates were saying, you're selling out. You're actually building friendships and relationships with these people that have us in prison. And he said, yes, I am. And they said, why? And he said, because you can't rule South Africa unless you know every one of its inhabitants, what they believe, what they need, what they want, what they desire. And these people are going, but they put us in jail. And he said, yeah, well, we actually put ourselves in jail. There's other options we could have done, but while we're here, let's take advantage of it. And it took a while for his cellmates to accept this. But you want to talk about a radical amount of faith? I think he was in that one prison for 22 or 27 years. I forget the exact amount, right? Through that whole time, he never thought he wouldn't be president of South Africa. Now, is that amazing? But then he learned Afrikaans, and he created relationships when he got out with de Klerk, who was the white president of South Africa at the time. He did all this work on top of his faith. So he believed he was going to do it. But then he did the stuff that other people would say was crazy. Now, what is your definition of God? Or what is your definition of your higher power? Or what is your definition of universal light? Help me. Share. What is it? Who wants to start? Now, I can only take one person at a time.
Collective consciousness.
Collective consciousness. What does collective consciousness mean to you?
Right now in this moment, it means to be able to allow what is right for my highest and best good. Would be able to allow what is highest best for everyone around me in the current situation.
Okay, so your higher power is collective consciousness, or whatever the word is. That's how you connect. Okay, who else wants to help me? What is your definition of God, or higher power, or universal light? What is it? Yes?
For me, it's love.
It's love. Okay, so the entity that we're doing all this work for is to move closer to love?
It's represent love, light. It's just one love in any religion, in any tradition. It's just one energy, it's love.
Okay, Reverend Kimberly, remember what you said to me earlier? Can you share it for us about your role here?
My role here is to just show up as love.
Is to show up as love.
Yes.
That can be the essence of who we are. And then we say, okay, if I'm showing up as love, then the question is, how can I show up as deeper love? Right? How can I make my collective consciousness even more powerful? How can I create a space for this love to grow, the consciousness to grow? But unless we're doing something that's a little risky, we're in comfort zone. Right? So sometimes, like if you're raised in a traditional Baptist or Lutheran or Catholic church and you come into something like this, I mean, this can seem pretty wacko at first. You know, like people are up here singing, praising. Wait a minute, everyone's clapping and I can't sit still. I'm over there, I can't sit still. And then all of a sudden you get brought into the energy. And then our mind changes and we say, maybe this is, like when I'm in here, I feel closer to God from the music alone. I have tears. I'm over there. I had tears several times today with the song One. Oh, please. I was almost going to tell Reverend Kimberly I needed like a half an hour to get it together before I speak. I'm really getting caught up in this song. You know, it was like, but it was so much going through me, so much energy passing through me. It was beautiful, stunning, right? So what are we going to do differently to make that bond with love and collective consciousness and love? And Mary Lou said last week, Mary Lou sent me a text and it said, you know, my only purpose is to be a conduit of love. You know? Now, yes?
I think it kind of answers what you're saying, is like less judgment of each other, like regardless of where you're coming from.
I love that. So the purpose is less judgment. You know, I talk a lot about the homeless, and I talk a lot about the homeless because I used to judge the heck out of them.
I was homeless for 3 weeks.
Were you homeless for 3 weeks?
Yeah. I lived in a homeless shelter because I came here to save up for my house and she changed her mind. And so my daughter and I went to the shelter by water.
Wow.
So I'm in an apartment now and it's been a blessing. So
Yeah.
I moved without any debt and it's really good. It's a great story.
It's an awesome story. From homeless, and are you still in the shelter?
No. I agreed to the steps because my angels told me you're going to have to do a few things you're not going to like, but it's going to work out. So I'm like, okay, I trust you. And it worked out. So, yeah.
I just think, you know, I know, isn't it so awesome? Yeah. So, and you were with your little girl in the homeless shelter?
Yeah. It was kind of scary. It's kind of dirty. There's blood on the walls. I'm not going to lie. That freaked me out. But
Yeah, that would freak me out too.
it did help to pay for 6 months' portion of my rent in my new apartment.
Yeah.
So it was really a blessing.
Okay. Now, when we talk about blessings and we talk about faith, the thing we have to be careful of, don't think you know what the path is going to be, okay? Like, the minute you think you know your path, all right, that's when we go off path. Because if we're going to get super comfortable, we're probably not going to be reaching and stretching and growing as much, right? So don't get too tied in that this is my path. And what is your purpose? When I was talking about the story of the rock was trying to find his purpose. Don't also get too hung up on whatever you're doing right now is my purpose. Because the minute you go, this is it, this is all I'm here for, we limit for you being the writer that's going to write a book that blow people's mind, or you being up on stage here telling your story, or you being in an AA room telling your story, or, whatever it might be, right? There is no end to the amount that we can grow. But if we start to limit our abilities to write, remember when one of my assistants 30 years ago said, I should write books, I thought she was insane. I really thought she was insane. I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world that I've ever heard, because I had no degree in literature, broadcast journalism, nothing whatsoever. And then all of a sudden it turned into a passion and a love. But there were so many blocks. So many blocks. The first major contract we got, and this is again about faith, I took a year, and it was with Hay House. You guys are familiar with Hay House. So I wrote a book for Hay House, and it took me 365 days. I took the year off from work. I wrote in my home. I had a certain blocks of time that I would put 5 days a week to write. So I wrote the book, and I got done with it and sent it into Hay House. And 30 daes later, one of my assistants then, Pat, calls me up, and she said, hey, come on into the office. There's a huge package here from Hay House. I am jazzed, because they had sent my book back, and I just can't wait to see it. And I opened it up, and it was just the manuscript. And in big letters across the front page, it said, total rejection. Yep. Total rejection. Rewrite entire book. And then on the next pages, there was 44 recommendations that they had said I had done horrendously wrong. And if I felt like following the 44 recommendations, they would take a look at the book again. Or there was a ghostwriter they knew that would write the book for me for $20,000. I've had a great experience in literature, haven't I? I tell you what, man, there's this one block after another many times on your path to God or love or collective consciousness. It's just the way it is. How serious are you? We can look at it like that, right? Oh, so you want to be a minister? And you have to go through all this. Well, how serious are you? Oh, you want to be an author that actually has a book that sells more than 3 copies? How serious are you, right? And so the question is, how serious are you? I looked, and Pat and Gary were in the office with me, and I opened it up, I looked at the front, big red, rejected, and I broke down, right? Totally broke down. I had given up an income for a year. I had written for a year. I had poured my heart out. I thought it was a great book. Of course, every author thinks their books are great, so that's nothing new. And then, after I got done crying, Pat and Gary said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I have a great publishing company, Hay House. I have feedback and validation, and the feedback says that I'm not a good writer. I don't think that's true. I don't know what I'm going to do. The next day I called the president, Reed Tracy, who was a friend of mine, and I said, Reed, he goes, I heard. I said, I need help. And he said, David, I have to tell you something. Even if I loved your book, which I do, I can't overrule our editors. Or what's the point of having editors if I overrule them? I'm really sorry. But I really want to publish this book. So please consider rewriting the whole thing. Oh my Lord. Right now, remember, now this was slow down. The fastest way to get everything you want was, I think, my 4th book. We have 11 out. And I think it was my 4th book. And it was the first one we got a very strong contract with. And yet, here I'm being told that it's no good. So I did what probably most people would do, is I threw it in my closet, covered it up with a bunch of clothes. I did. I was so mad. I threw the whole package in the closet. I just covered it with clothes. And I said, I'm done. I'm not looking at that. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to pay for a ghostwriter. I think I've got a great book, but I am so mad that this isn't the time to look at it, right? And then I went back into prayer and asking, what the heck am I going to do? I kept going back, asking what I'm going to do, and I didn't touch it for several months because I didn't get an answer of what I'm supposed to do. You know, so I kept saying, should I rewrite it? I'm not going to pay for a ghostwriter because I love to write. Why pay for a ghostwriter when I love to write, even though they said it stinks? After a number of months, I pulled it out, and I got this feeling in my heart and soul that it was time to pull it out. And here's a couple funny things. The very first, because I hadn't read the 44 changes yet, right? I didn't even want to read that stuff. I just saw the rejection, and I didn't want to read what I'd have to change. The very first point, which was a valid one, I have to admit for them, is that I had signed a contract that the book would be 77,000 words long. And the book I handed in was exactly 144,000 words. So I hadn't even read the contract. I swear to God, I didn't read the detail. So all of a sudden I'm going, oh my God. Now that's my fault, right? That's my fault. Okay, what's this? This, and I started reading through them and I go, wait a minute. These are teeny tiny. There's 44 of them, but that's not a reason to reject the book. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut the book in half, which wasn't that easy to do because as a writer, that word THE has to be there. Like we hate criticism, right? So if someone said, take this sentence out and the paragraph will be fine. No, you don't understand. That sentence is gold. That's how we feel. Like, you know, we don't want to part with any of our babies. It can be an A, a letter A. No, that's a letter A. I put it there. It must. Anyway, I cut it down to 77,000 words. And then I started looking at it and I said, you know what? I only had 8 chapters. I'm just going to I'm going to make it like 14 chapters instead. So it's faster reading, right? Those are the only changes I made. And I sent it back and it was accepted like that. Is that fascinating? Isn't that wild? It's like I go, no, you know, I go, okay, I can agree with these 3 of the 44 recommendations, but I don't agree with them. I'm just going to change it the way I'd like to see it changed. And it was accepted. Now, I will tell you that one of the reasons why I kept going back to doing that book and write is because I didn't want to give up on myself. I really believed I was worthy of having a great book. Now I'm going to ask you the question. Do you feel worthy of new changes in your life? Do you feel worthy of a change with your finances or your health or your friendships or your intimate relationships or your connection with God or source or love or collective consciousness, right? Do you feel worthy? Now, if you're sitting in here, I can tell you, you are worthy just by the fact of you showing up, right? So whenever you come to something, you come to Reverend Kimberly's meditation, every time you put yourself into a position where you have to get in your car, drive somewhere, give up time, maybe give some money, whatever it might be, you are proving that you are more worthy for more success. Does that make sense? And every time you say, well, you know, I'd like to go to that meditation, or I'd like to go to the crystal bowls. Oh man, I love that kind of stuff. You know, but you know, it's Wednesday and it's 7:30 at night, and you know, I think I'd rather sit in and watch another rerun of 2.5 Men. That's a good trade-off. Let's just go ahead and watch something, right? But the person building faith and the person building a deeper connection is saying, I don't feel like doing it, which means I need to. Isn't that fascinating? Mm-hmm. It's almost that simple. If you want a deeper connection, do a little bit more out of your comfort zone. Does anyone use the word God? Do you pray to God? Yeah, okay, I pray to God too. Yeah, and it's no judgment here, right? It's not like we're trying to see who's winning and who's losing. Everyone won. You already won. You showed up, you already won. I like that. So I still, even though I've gone through all kinds of training and all different kinds of religions, I still believe in a God, and probably because of my earlier upbringing, I still see him with a beard. And I still see him with long clothes on. You know, I'm not kidding you. And I'm probably going to, I could change. It hasn't changed yet. But that feels good to me. You know, like I can visualize him hanging out in the big chair and angels around him. It feels comfortable to me. But this isn't about me. I want to know what feels comfortable to you. And let's say that you have a belief about God right now, but you're just not jamming with it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, you know, when you listen to a song and you're just not jamming to the song and you want to change the channel. If you don't feel the image, the thought, the words of the God force that I'm talking about is enough to get you emotionally excited, we need to change. Does that make sense? Like, I want you to figure, I don't care. How many people have heard of a Karen? C-A-I-R-N. Not if your name is Karen, no, I'm not talking about you, okay? We have a couple people, okay. And I believe it was formulated in Ireland, if I'm correct. I think that's where they first came.
Oh, I know it. I'm from Ireland.
Oh.
You're thinking, is that the same Karen?
Yeah, okay, so it is Ireland.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So it's this really wild, if you've ever seen, and a lot of Buddhist monks practice this. This is how I was introduced to it. But they'll take like 10, 15 stones, and with super glue, no, I'm just teasing, they don't use super glue, they stack them and they balance them, and you look at it and you go, how does that stay balanced? Right? Aileen, is that true?
That is correct. Oh, you remember my name.
Yeah, I remember your name. Yes. And it stays balanced, right? And so you may create a Karen. And you may look at that and it may move you. But I'm going to open your mind a little bit. I want you to find something that when you think of God or love or collective conscience, I want you to find something that moves you emotionally. Because, you know, I still like the God image I have growing up, but there was too many things about making you feel guilty when I grew up. You know, everything about, you didn't finish your piece, oh my God, you're going to purgatory. You may not go to hell, but you're going to purgatory. You know, it's that kind of, like, there was all this kind of stuff, like negative energy that I felt around it. But when I think of my image of God, I think of this really loving, old, wise man that just wants me to rock and roll. That's how I view it. But I want you to have a connection. So let me tell you this story. One of my clients, I think it's been 7 months ago now, lost his wife of 30-something years. And it was a battle with cancer, and it was really drawn out. And she was this woman, and her religion was Buddhism, and she had such impeccable faith that she never worried about dying, even through all her suffering. She never suffered much. It was like, when he told me the story, it was like incredible, right? And so he goes to this island, and he's there on a retreat, and I'm working with him with our grief program. We have a grief program that we take people through, and whether it's losing, like I just lost my little dog of 8 years, and he was 13, and really, really tough, and we have a grieving process. So I'm taking him through the grieving process with his wife, and then he says, hey, next week I'm going to be on this island at this retreat, and he said, we'll miss this week, but come back. And so he sends me this picture. And right off the coast of this island is another little island. They call it a spit, S-P-I-T, which, from what I understand, is that it can shift and move. Like, it'll be an island, and then all of a sudden it'll go underneath water, and then when the tide's lower, it's an island again. I think that's what a spit is. Does anyone else know what the definition? Am I close? Okay. It's not something out of your mouth. It's actually sand. What's that?
It sounds like Brigadoon.
Brigadoon. What's Brigadoon?
Brigadoon was a wonderful musical,
Okay.
and the story was that this magical land would surface and then go down below the earth and below the oceans
Oh.
every certain number of decades or centuries.
Okay.
It's a beautiful, how are things in Guacamole, and all sorts of beautiful songs come from.
Okay. Brigadoon. All right, I'm going to look into that. So he's there, and you know, he's mourning his wife, and he has a great relationship with God, and he prays every day, but he wanted to do something bigger. So what he did was he got one of his friends that was at the retreat, and they paddled out to this little spit, and they didn't know this. On the other side of the spit was coral rock. Huge amounts of dead coral rock, some live and some dead. He created a 5-foot 4-inch Karen to bless his wife with. His wife was 5'4". And so he found all these different, and him and this guy spent hours and hours and hours until they got it to stay in this stationary position, right? Not now, if a wave came in, I'm sure it would knock it over, but, and he said when he stood back and he sent me this picture, it is so deep and spiritual and beautiful. And if someone had that as who they prayed to and who they believed to, like what I'm trying to do is wipe away that there has to be some kind of certain way for you to connect with God. It needs to be the way that you feel I believe. And the deeper you feel when you think of your version of God, the more likely we are to do more work. Would that be true?
Yes, yes.
You know, we're more connected, right? We're more connected. So what do you need to do? Do you need to put more altars in your house? Some people may have 2 or 3 or 4 already, right? I know some people that do. You know, do you need to put one in? But what is it?
A pink rock, quartz, rose quartz.
Oh, I love it. A pink rock rose quartz, yes. We need to name her. She's a little sweetie.
I have a big rose quartz.
Do you?
It's on my bedside table, and sometimes I wake up, it's in the bed with me. I don't remember putting it in the bed.
Oh my gosh. Now that's pretty freaky, right? Like you wake up and right on the pillow next to you is a red rose quartz.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I think it's awesome.
I've had it for years, and there's an angel etched into the stone.
Well, she's flying then.
I got it in Elysian Fields.
Oh, yeah. That's where I got this.
I wondered.
Yep.
Everything good comes from Elysian.
Elysian Fields in Sarasota is a beautiful store, and it's just stunning. Yeah, it's stunning. Well, I'm glad you mentioned, because I wanted to go into this next. How many people have connected with one or more angels or archangels that you would feel? Can anyone share with me who your archangel is? Do you know by name?
Uriel.
Who is it? Uriel? Uriel?
Metatron and Miguel.
Metatron? Yes. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, Metatron and Gabriel.
And Gabriel, okay. Anyone else want to share?
Michael.
Michael.
Michael's mine too.
Oh my gosh. Okay, only one of you can have me. Just kidding. We'll do. What'd you say?
We both had ex-husbands that were named Michael.
Oh, do you really? Oh, that's interesting. Oh my gosh. Anyone else have an angel?
Yeah, I have a personal angel, Celeste.
Celeste is your personal angel.
Everybody has a personal
And there's a Celeste right here.
Are you Celeste?
Yes.
Oh, how funny. I
She
love
knew
it.
you were coming, so she's got your back.
Thank you. Thank
She
you.
always does it right.
Yeah, so when you go to stores and she happens to be behind you, don't get freaked, okay? It's her job. That's just what
You are
she's...
very good at finding things for me. Thank you.
And you're very welcome. Okay. When I was introduced to the world of angels years ago, I wasn't quite sure if it was valid, invalid, if it could be helpful or not. And personally, I've found over the years it's been amazing. I want to mention this again. I think it's crucial to find a personal connection in all these things we're talking about that touches you in the heart. So here's what I'd recommend. If you don't have an angel, and if you'd like one, they have plenty of time for you. Okay? They've got all the time in the world to help. What I would do is I would Google the archangels. I would read about each one and see which one might resonate with you. You know, now Gabriel is mine as my main one, but I also work with Michael, Uriel, Raphael. So I have Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael as my archangels. Gabriel is probably, without a doubt, the most powerful. And I don't know if you guys were here a month ago, but I told the story that the very first time I spoke here, which was a long time ago, I came down and I was in the back afterwards speaking, and a woman came up to me and she said, I just have a minute, but I have to talk to you, like, right now. And I said, okay. And she pulls me over to the side, and she goes, do you believe in angels? And I said, yeah, I do. And she said, do you know who was standing behind you? And as you moved across the sanctuary, she moved with you with her wings out like this throughout your whole presentation. And I looked at her and I said, was it Gabriel? She said it was. And I said, that's mind-blowing. And then she was surprised. She said, do you do angel readings? I said, no. How did you know? I said, because just a couple years ago, a friend bought me this huge angel, Gabriel, and told me that Gabriel is with me everywhere I go. And Gabriel is the archangel of speech, right? And so I said, oh my gosh, like, the people will know us more than we know ourselves, right? But I would love for you to go and explore. Like, find out what Raphael, his strength is, and Uriel, and Michael. Michael is very powerful. Michael is a cord-cutting son of a gun. He takes that sword out, man. He can do some real good work. Healthy work. Possibly even helping you cut habits that are no longer in your best interest. There's lots of stuff that all these angels can do. But why do I bring up angels now? we're talking about God, me, and you, and success. What does angels got to do with this?
Help us, guide us,
I'm sorry?
help us.
Yes,
guide us.
yes, help us to guide us. Like if you had a mentor, if I could invite you guys to get get an angel as a mentor and talk to them. Ask them. Before I came in and did my sermons today, before I came in here, I prayed to Gabriel. I prayed to God, Jesus, Buddha, Gabriel, you know, and I just say, I'm yours. I'm a vessel now. Please do your thing, because you're much wiser than I am, and you're much funnier, and you're much smarter. So let me just open up and you rush through me. And that's what happens. You know, it's so fun. It's so fun. Now, I will tell you one time, because it isn't all fun and games when you're being a speaker. There was one time that I absolutely bombed. Now, I've been speaking for 40 years, and I love it, so it hasn't happened very much. And I've never had a total bomb except for this one time. I'm speaking in front of this big business group. It was a luncheon, and I was the keynote speaker, and they had made a big deal about me coming in, and they gave me this topic, and I said, awesome. I don't know, 400 or 500 people in the room, around the big round tables, and I started speaking, right? And I had done my Gabriel work and God work ahead of time, and I'm speaking for 10 minutes, and I have lost the entire room. Now, I'm just trying to think. It would probably be the same thing as if you woke up and you were driving your car and you had no idea where you were. Okay? Just imagine yourself. Okay? Imagine you woke up and you're driving down a highway. You've never seen the highway before. You have no idea what state you're in, what city, what country. Can you get a feel? What are our emotions that come up when you feel... What? Scary. What else?
Run.
What?
Run.
Run. What else?
Lost.
Lost. What else? Scary. Run.
Anxious.
Lost. Anxious. What else?
Confused.
Huh?
Panic.
Panicky. Yes, panicky. And then my greatest fear was, this is a worst failure of my life. Now, here's something. Now, if you believe in out-of-body experiences, does anyone believe in out-of-body experiences?
Yes.
Okay. I go out-of-body at every lecture. And it's nothing I've ever been trained. It's nothing. I don't know how you do it. It just happens. And there's a part of me that goes up and sees everything. And I'm focusing on people like this, but there's a part of me much bigger than me that's seeing everything. So I start having this conversation. I go, I am screwed. Now, I'm doing my motivation, right? I'm going, and then you're going to do it. I'm going to Gabriel. I'm going, I am so screwed. I've lost the group. Where the heck do I go from here? And then a woman comes out of the back with a sign, and it says 40 minutes left. I go, 40 minutes? I don't want it to be 4 minutes. I want it to be done. I'm serious. I'm having this conversation going, we're not going to make it 40 minutes. I don't know. We need something. We need an act of God, like a hurricane, to stop this or something, you know. And then all of a sudden, and this is where I really believe the work with your angels and with God or love or collective consciousness on a daily basis will pay off. Within a minute or two of having this conversation, I'm lost, I'm screwed, I don't know where I'm going. All of a sudden, Gabriel comes through me and says to me, meatloaf. It was time to have a little something to eat. No. So I go, oh my God, yes. And I threw out everything I was going to talk about. And I went to the story of my interview with the singer Meatloaf. And how many people have heard me tell the story of Meatloaf?
No.
1, 2, 3. Raise your hand high so I know. 4, 5. 5 of us heard the story of Meatloaf, okay? I tell the story of Meatloaf. I turned the entire crowd around. And at the end of it, we got a standing ovation that wouldn't stop when I knew I was dead in the water. Now, I will tell you, the only reason that was turned around was because of my work and connection that you have the same capability of. You know, it's like I have nothing different than what you have. It's just practice. So if I talk to Gabriel every day, at some point, or Michael, or Raphael, or whoever it is that you love, or God, it doesn't matter. The more you have a conversation, the more you have a relationship, the more you'll see things, right? Like you'll see the synchronicities of life, and you'll see some pretty magical stuff, I believe, by putting more time into the stuff that we're talking today. And I'll tell you the quick story of Meatloaf since I opened that doorway. So, and you'll know why I turned it around. So for 27 years, I hosted a nationally syndicated radio talk show, and the last group we were with was Sirius XM. But for 10 years, from 1990 to 2000, I was with Westwood One. And we were in Tampa. WFLA Talk Radio carried our show in Tampa, and we were in almost 300 cities across the U.S., so it was a really big deal. And so one day, so what happened is my studio is in my house in Florida, and I have a headset on, and my producer's in Washington, D.C. So in my right ear, I have my producer. In my left ear, I have a caller or a guest or whatever. So I'm listening to this caller in my right ear, and the caller's asking this question, and all of a sudden, in my left ear, my producer comes on and says, "Oh my God, David, Meatloaf is here. He's standing outside the studio because we have the big pane glass, and he's listening in the hallway to the show, and he's waving to my producer who doesn't, all he knows is it's freaking Meatloaf, right? And he's waving, and he's giving him the thumbs up and everything. And so my producer's telling me this, that Meatloaf's out there, he's giving us the thumbs up. I said, so I'm listening to the caller, I give an answer, and then we go to break. I said, oh my God, go get him. I want him on the show. So he runs out of the hallway, and he says to Meatloaf, hey, the host of the show is so appreciative that you really like this positive talk radio. He wants you on. And Meatloaf goes, oh, I love this stuff. Like, I will listen to this stuff all the time. He goes, okay. And then his handler said, no. Meatloaf, you've been doing interviews all day. We have a big concert tomorrow. No, there's no more interviews. So I said to my producer, I said, tell him I'll just ask him one question. That's all. So he goes back out in the hallway and he says to the manager, the host just wants to ask Meatloaf one question. And Meatloaf goes, perfect. Meatloaf comes in the studio, and I introduce him to I go, this is wild, gang. We've got Meatloaf in the audience. He's in the studio, and I only have a chance for one question. I said, Meat? What is the wildest thing that's ever happened to you as a musician and singer? What's one story that changed you? And he said, that's easy. Because a number of years ago, I was in Toronto doing an album signing. And he said, now remember, we're back in the 90s. There was actually albums, okay? So for, everyone, most of you guys are what, in your 30s? I just get a bunch of friends. They were still using, so he was signing, albums, right? And so they're in Toronto, and he's going to do a gig there, and the line went around and around and around the block. And so he always committed to be there for 2 or 3 hours, whatever the contract was. And at the end of the 2 or 3 hours, if there were 100 people, 300 people left, they just left. And Meatloaf explained to me that that's just what you have to do. You only have so many hours in a day when you're, signing these things and then singing at night. You really do have to rest, and you have to have your energy and everything. But he said on this day, he didn't want to leave. So every time his manager would come up and say, hey, Meat, come on. We're like an hour over. We're only supposed to be here for 2 hours now. It's been 3 hours. He'd say, no, there's a reason I'm here. I have to trust it. There's a reason. We've got to stay until the very last person walks through the door. Now, he had never said that before to his manager. And his manager was not happy. He said, this is crazy. It's going around and around. And Meatloaf said, I understand, but I have to stay. Finally, hours go by, and the last 2 people come into the door. So there's probably 10 or 15 people before, and then he sees the end of the line. At the end of the line was a man, and he had his arm around his girlfriend, and her head was on his chest, and Meatloaf could see she was crying hysterically. And he said, the first thing he went through his head is, this is why I was told to stay. Isn't that beautiful? It's like, this is why I was told to stay. There's something in that couple. And they finally came up to the very end, and the guy was going, we can't believe you're here. We thought you were going to leave 2 hours ago. My girlfriend cannot speak to you, but we have to tell you the story. A couple weeks ago, she contacted me. My girlfriend said she needed just a weekend by herself, and I said fine. And so she said that, or the guy was saying that she said she wanted to go to a hotel and just chill out, and she did. And it was right down the road from here, Meatloaf, as a matter of fact. She went to the hotel, went into the room, put her bags on the bed, closed the blind, turned the radio up really loud, and opened up her purse and pulled a gun out and put it in her mouth. And just as she was about to pull the trigger, Meatloaf, your song, Heaven Can Wait, came on the radio. And she's listening to the words. And she pulled the gun out of her mouth and put it on the bed and called for help. You may not know the impact you have on this world, but we want to tell you it's been dramatic in our life. And we just came to thank you. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that gorgeous? And Meatloaf said, you know, after that day, I always make a comment in my concerts about taking care of ourselves. It was a turning point in my life, he said, you know? And I look at that as a channeling, right? I look at that as there was, and we may call it God, we might call it an angel, we may call it a guardian of whatever, but there was a channeling that got his attention. Now, I will say this, a lot of us have those channelings happening regularly, but we may not be aware of them until we slow down and start to make more of a conscious effort to open up space for God, as I like to use the word, in our lives. Does that make sense? And the more space we open up, and the more we commit to this path, the more synchronicity comes, the more guidance comes, the more answers come. And as importantly, and this is going to sound a little oxymoronic since we're talking about success, but the more patience that comes. You know, I think if we could all hear a story of patience every day, it would be so beautiful. We're in this rush world. You know, people, we don't have time, we think, to pray. We don't have time to meditate. We don't have time to create a connection with God or an angel. We don't have time, you know, because we're rushing, we're moving. And yet the people that create the most amazing experiences in their life have the same 24 hours, but they create the space, you know. I say to people when someone says, you know, I want what you're talking about, David. I want that deeper connection. I want that channeling. I want that feeling. And I'll say, then just get rid of your TV.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the average American has 4 hours a day. Well, actually, the average American watches 6 to 8 hours a day, but I'd like to cut it back to something a little bit more reasonable. If you watch 4 hours of TV a day, and it's really easy, and I'm not talking about sitting down and watching it. I'm talking about you're making dinner, it's in the background, and then you sit down and watch it and all this. But what if instead of the TV in the background, what if you had stories like the Meatloaf one? What if you're listening to an audio about Archangel Michael? Go to, you know, YouTube is amazing, right? I mean, go to YouTube and just Google angel videos, and you'll have enough for the next 2 lifetimes. You won't have to worry about changing the channel. You know, we have a YouTube channel with, I don't know, 1,400 videos we've done so far. You know, check it out, listen to them. We've got stuff on about almost everything. But it's that connection, right? It's creating the space. It's opening up more space for you to bring in more of what you want. And that patience is crucial. Because for most of us, having that deeper connection with God, I mean, if it occurs overnight, awesome, but it may not. It may take more time to nurture. There are spontaneous healings. There are spontaneous connections to God or the divine, absolutely. It's not normal. We like to call them miracles. You know, it's not, but it can happen. So let's talk miracles. What is a miracle?
Spontaneous order for your highest and best.
Okay, a spontaneous order for your highest and best. Good. What else? What else is a miracle? An unexplained event.
And synchronicity.
A synchronicity. What else is a miracle? Every day can be, right? Every day can be a miracle. What's the difference between people that see miracles regularly and people that don't?
Two-way communication.
Okay, they're noticing them. So how do we become more aware to notice the miracles that are around us?
Be close to God.
Gratitude. And what?
Close to God.
Get closer to God. Like, there isn't a lot of complication here. There's time and there's effort, but there's not a lot of complication. So imagine this. How many people get up in the morning Okay, now I'm going to have to back up here because I know how tricky this question is. And don't turn on the TV, the news, social media for the first hour you're awake. Awesome. Awesome. It is one of the greatest gifts that you'll ever give yourself, is the first hour of every day being devoted to your spiritual growth, your spiritual help, your love of God, your love with God, your love of archangels, your whatever it is, right? Your gratitude, your journaling, like that first hour. If you can keep the world out for the first 60 minutes, right, and just allow you to create that connection. Now, I'm going to tell you that it might be uncomfortable if you're not already doing it. Why would, it sounds like, well, if I'm going to create a deeper connection with God and my angels, it shouldn't be uncomfortable. Why would it be? Do you know?
It's not habit.
Thank you. It's not habit. Vulnerability. Do you know how many people start jonesing when they can't get to their social media first thing? Right? Like, have you ever opened up, like, first thing in the morning, your Facebook, and you have to, and it's not working, and you have to delete the app and then put it back on, and it happens a lot. People freak out when they can't get their junk first thing in the morning. Their juice, right? So, let me talk about the conscious and subconscious mind, because I think this is going to help. The conscious mind is sitting here today, and let's say that, I'm just going to make this up, but let's say that everyone in this room says, all right, I'm going to take you on, David. First thing every morning, I'm going to be deepening my path. And if I already have an hour, I'm going to do something different, but I'm going to deepen it. And if I'm not doing an hour, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start with an hour, okay? So that's the conscious mind. I came in here to pick up something new. He's given me something new to do. I'm going to do it. That's all consciousness. The alarm goes off an hour early tomorrow morning, and what happens for most of us?
Pick up the phone.
What?
Pick up the phone to turn it off.
Yeah, we turn the alarm off. It's like, oh, God, I didn't know that it was that early. When I set my alarm last night, I didn't think it was going to be that early. I'm starting tomorrow. This is crazy. It's Monday afterwards. Yeah, I got a big week. I'm going to begin tomorrow, right? Okay. How does that happen? Because logically, if what I'm saying to you, you believe to be true, and I believe it to be true, I wouldn't say it, that if you connect deeper with God, you'll be more successful in every area of life. And whenever I say that, I have to do this caveat. I'm not just talking money, man. I'm talking about deeper, intimate relationships, being more humble, more vulnerable, more loving, more giving, more compassionate, less defensive, right? I'm talking about all this stuff. So if all of these benefits, I promise you, will come by putting in more space and time, that's logical, right? That makes sense. And it's the same thing with anything else. You want a better body, you're going to have to put more time into your diet and exercise. You want better use of your money, you're going to have to do that thing I shared with you earlier, right? So anything that offers a great benefit is going to ask for a great effort. If it's a tiny benefit, it's a tiny effort. But I'm not talking about a tiny relationship with God. No. I'm talking about like the rock that goes for years of being covered in sand and still doesn't lose faith that he's going to find his purpose in life. That's what I'm talking about. So if it logically makes sense that we should do it, the reason we may not is because it hasn't yet become a habit, a pattern in the subconscious mind. The subconscious is much more powerful than consciousness. Your conscious intention to eat clean can get thrown out at 7 o'clock tonight when someone calls you and says, I just made carrot cake. And you go, bring it over. No, the whole thing. So consciously we say, I'm going to start eating clean, and then we get a temptation and we go running for the hills. So if you consciously make a decision to do something, that's why I'm asking you to email it to me. Because that's the first step to change. The thought is the first step, but the real first step to change is by saying, and this is what I'm going to do differently. And then you got to worry about me showing up at your house some morning, looking in your window to making sure you're doing what you said you're going to do. That's the real worry. I would be very anxious about, I would be going, okay, I better do it because he could be around at any moment. So I want to know what you're going to do, and I want to know the angelic part of it. And then, has anyone ever experienced a miracle? Go ahead. Every day. Can you give me well, can I give you a miracle that you received? Do you mind? You're here. You're out of the shelter. Conscious, creative miracles. And why do I say it's a miracle for you? Because there's many young women in your situation that are not out of the shelter. So when you are in it and you get out of it, to me, that, and as quickly as you did, that is such a miracle. That is beautiful. Who else? Does anyone else want to share a miracle that maybe you experienced? Sir, when you raise your hand like to do this, that means I'm going to call on you. It's like an auctioneer. Did you ever?
I was a Catholic unwed mother, and the only choice was adoption, and I found her 24 years later, and it was joyous.
Oh my!
And
Finding your mother?
No, finding my daughter.
Oh, your daughter. So your daughter was adopted, and then you found her 24 years later? Oh my God.
And when the investigator, found her and said, I hate to be so blunt, but are you adopted? She goes, yes, I am. And my mother named me Angela because I'm her baby angel, and I love her. When can I meet her?
Oh my gosh. That is really. Anyone else? Yes.
For real.
For real, okay.
I think it's a miracle when I look back in my life and witness the people that I have met, the places that I have been, just by chance.
Yeah.
And for instance, my mother used to take me to Unity Church when I was 5 years old.
Wait. Your mom took you to Unity Church when you were 5.
5 years old. And we became friends with Eric Butterworth. He was kind of the father.
Yeah.
Kind of a new thought movement.
Wow.
And it's just events like that.
Yeah.
It just, I look back and I can hardly believe it.
If you're watching at home, this is on low battery again. I don't know if I'm going to do. Oh. I don't know how that happens when it's plugged in. It's the weirdest thing, That doesn't make sense logically, does it? It's plugged in, but it's on low battery. Huh.
It could be that you're using hotspot.
What's that?
It could be that you're using a Wi-Fi. No, that actually should
Yeah,
make it.
I'm not sure. Well, we'll see how it goes. So, miracles. Yes.
It's a miracle, be here, like you say. For me, it's a miracle. Be here, right here, right
Just to be here right now. Just to be here right now. So you're walking into the grace of God whenever you walk into a sanctuary, right? You're walking, but you walk into the forest and it's the grace of God. You come to the beach and it's the grace of God. What makes this to me such a miracle for having you all here is that it's a Sunday afternoon. You have a billion different options and you chose you.
We chose you.
And you chose me. And I chose you back. But that's pretty miraculous. That's pretty cool. I had a miraculous healing from my addiction to cocaine, but it didn't work like that for alcohol. So with cocaine, I had prayed on my knees so many times. And finally, in 1996, on a Tuesday afternoon at 2:30, I woken from a very huge binge. And I got down and screamed out loud like I had done 1,000 times before, please God, make this the last time. Please relieve this addiction. I screamed as loud as I could, and it was removed. Now, the alcohol was a totally different story. I screamed as well for that. But that one I had to go work my butt off. But here's one of the cool miracles that happen in recovery. So I go into the treatment center, and if you ever have to go into a treatment center, it's a party. Just kidding. It's anything but a party. It's oh my goodness. The first 3 days, depending on what's that?
The first 3 days were detox.
Yeah, first 3 days are detox. You're in this little wing, and they've got nurses staring at you 24/7 to make sure that you don't go into convulsions and all that kind of stuff. And then you come out. And so I I was after 3 days, I was going across the campus, and a guy came up to me and said, "Are you Essel?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Father Ron wants to see you." I said, "Who's Father Ron?" Father Ron is a spiritual director. He's a Monsignor in the Roman Catholic Church, and I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and I said, "A Monsignor, that's pretty high up there." And the dude's here, a treatment center. That's pretty wild. So I went over, and Father found Dr. Ron's, and I knocked. He said, "Come on in." And I walked in, and there was a chair in front of his desk, and I went to sit down, and he goes, "Essel, there's no need for that." I said, "Oh, here's my introduction to Father Ron." I said, "Okay." He goes, "Just stand." I said, "Okay. I have a question for you. I'm going to see you tomorrow at 2:30. I have an hour for you tomorrow at 2:30. Right now, I have just a couple minutes. I want to know the answer to this question. Why are you here?" Now, I just came out of 3 days of detox, right? And I said, to learn how to drink moderately. I swear to God, I'm in a freaking treatment center, and I'm answering that I want to learn how to drink moderately. Now, I have 30 years almost experience proving I cannot drink moderately, okay? And I am going there thinking, that's why I'm here. What are we going to do? I can just imagine his head. What do you think we're going to do? Have everyone sit around with a half a glass of wine and say, "Drink it, let's see how you do"? You know, it's like the craziest thing in the world. And so he said, "What?" And I go, "Okay, I'm just going to shut up." And he goes, "I'm going to give you one more chance." And he's just shaking his head, and I go, "To get on medication so I'll never crave drinking again?" And then his head dropped. And he's just shaking his head. And he's going, "What is wrong? I'm going to give you one more chance. Why are you here?" And then I said, "To get sober?" "Well, welcome. You're in the right place. Glad to have you here. Now get out of here and I'll see you." And then he goes, "Wait a minute." And I turned around and he goes, "Look, I know everything about you. I know that you write books. I know you're a minister. I know all this stuff." He said, "But I want to tell you something right now. You need to work on your path to God. It's not what you think it is. And when you work on your path to God, I'm going to tell you two things that will happen. You will never, ever, for the rest of your life, crave alcohol or drugs. I guarantee it. Get out of here. I'll see you at 2:30. And honestly, everyone, I was dumbfounded. I really didn't know what just hit me. Because I thought I prayed every day, I meditated every day, I preached every Sunday. It's like, how much closer can you get? Right? That's what's going on in my head. What do you mean? I'm fully devoted, blah, 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 right? And then I put my bags in my room, and there was this little track, and I had my mala, and I took it off, and I started praying 108 prayers. And I'm praying, and I said, "God, I have no idea what Father Ron's talking about. Getting closer to you, like, I really think I have a great relationship with you. Can you please guide me? I need your help. I need your assistance. I don't know what is going on here." And I was thoroughly confused, really thoroughly confused. So as I continued to pray on the beads, all of a sudden this phrase came into my head. I joyfully surrender my life and will to God. And I have no idea where it came from. All I know was for the next hour and a half, I walked it, and I got stronger, and I prayed harder, and I started smiling, and I'm going, I know. Oh my God, my life and will, I surrender it all to you, God. The next day at 2:30, I knock on the door. He comes, says, "Come in." I walk into Father Ron's office. He said, "Put your bag down." I put it down. He said, "Look at me." I looked at him. He said, "You got it, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, sir, I did." He said, "Tell me what happened." And I told him. He said, "That'll never leave you. But the only thing you have to do is you have to do that same thing every day for the rest of your life. And it'll never leave you. Welcome home, son." Is that beautiful? You know? And it was so amazing. When I met with him the next day, he said to me, "There's one other guy." There were 60 men and 60 women in the treatment center. He said, "There's one other person in here, a gentleman, that got what you got last night. And for the next 30 days, I'm taking you guys on a spiritual journey you'll never forget. Every night, we're going to different prayer meetings. Every night, we're going to different circles. In West Palm Beach, where we were. Now, we were in West Palm Beach, but we were not in that part of West Palm Beach. When people think of West Palm Beach, you think of the nice part. No, we were in the barbed wire, crack addict areas of, and that's where all the treatment centers, or at least when I was there, were. You know, there were barbed wires. I mean, who's trying to break into a treatment center? I mean, it's like, what? Barbed wires to keep you. And I said that to Father Ron one day. He goes, nah, that's to keep the meatheads from trying to get out. He goes, everyone wants to go out. And here's a sad part of the story is that one of the guys did go out. And he got out and he went into Crack City and he had money because he was in the treatment center and he didn't want to be clean anymore. And they almost brought him back in a body bag. He went into surgery. They just beat the hell out of him. And that's the area that we were in. You know, but Father Ron took us to these there's like these tiny little enclaves. I don't want to call them quite monasteries, but they were like religious enclaves that we went to where it would be all nuns praying in a certain way. And then we'd go to another circle. It was like the most, and that was a miracle to me, right? The miracle was that I did what he said in my own way, and that's what I want you guys to keep remembering. There is not a way. It's your way to create. Can I get a yes? Yes. Like it's your way. You got to make it individual. That relationship should be individual. Collectively, we feel the power and the passion and the energy when we're in this space. And we're singing and we're clapping and we're listening, right? Like that's the collectiveness. But we need this to be with us. Like that one-on-one thing. And ever since I left there, my life has been a miracle. I've walked into parties with mounds of cocaine, huge amounts of wine, and I just go, okay. That's it. It's like there's never been a pull. There's never been, no, have mine. I'm good. I've never felt anxious around people drinking. I'll leave if people get goofy, but you can drink around me all you want. It's totally fine. But I also have to say this, that what Father Ron said was true. As long as you keep your practice up, you'll never have to worry again. And I believe it's true for all of us. If we're tired of dysfunctional relationships, or we're tired of being tired, or we're tired of the health issues we faced, or we're tired of the career we're in, or we're just tired, just tired. But we can get rejuvenated. But that rejuvenation is not going to come from living the life we're currently living, is it? You can't rejuvenate by doing the same thing we're doing all over the place, which is why, again, I'm asking for the homework. I want to know what you're going to do differently in order to bring this new energy, this new passion, and this new success in. Sir, you had mentioned about, the miracle of meeting people, right? If there is one thing that is the greatest gift of doing the work that we're all doing, it's me meeting you. And feeling your passion and your love and your energy for yourself by being here. Whether it's at a meditation class or a Sunday sermon or the pyramid work you guys have billions of things going on in here, It's like, my Lord, it's not too hard to find a class to help you get closer to God. Can I get a yes? Yes. It's almost like, I want that, right? But you have to do something, I believe, outside of our current routine in order to broaden and deepen that relationship. In the world of physical exercise, if you do the same exercise at the same resistance for a year, you will not see any improvement past the first 60 days. Now, years ago, in 1980 to 1989, I worked in the fitness industry, and I owned a health club and all that kind of stuff. And I can remember people coming in for 3, 4, and 5 years, and they never lost a pound. Did you say that's me? Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah, you do.
You do, because the body can plateau so quickly. So you need to change it up. And we say every 60 to 90 days you should make a radical change to your workout program. Okay? So, and it's the same thing with God, I believe. Like, we need to try something different. How many people have been to a crystal bowl ceremony? Okay, for those that haven't, please go. It's beautiful. Or I know there was a harpsichord thing, and what else was there, Kimberly, that you guys...
We have an angel harp, we have gongs.
Gongs? Drums?
The crystal bowls, and then a guitar.
Okay.
It's really more than a guitar. It's amazing.
Is it really? And see, there's something here now. We happen to be on this theme of music right now, talking about, but there's something really deep and spiritual about music. As a matter of fact, and here's something. I never listen to gospel, okay? Never, ever. It's just not, like I don't say, hey, Alexa, play gospel. Until a month ago. When I was here preaching before, we didn't have a gospel choir. Okay? There was no gospel. And I come up here to preach a month ago, and all of a sudden, I want to listen to gospel. That's a way to broaden our connection to God. So instead of me waiting for next Sunday and watching you guys on Facebook, because that's what we do now in Fort Myers, we watch you guys on Facebook. See, you're never out of my view. Don't think for a second. I know. But, and we get inspired by the Wandas and everyone up there singing, right? To me, it's an opening of all the chakras, and it's an opening to all the love that's available. So if you're going home tonight and you don't normally listen to gospel, listen to gospel. Look at the schedule before you leave here and say, I'm going to that drum circle or that sitar or whatever, right? Like, expand ourselves. Expand. We have a brand new book I'm going to talk about for a second, because I think this is one of the reasons why we're all here. How to experience heaven on earth. When most people, and maybe not here, when most people think of heaven, they don't think of it as here. When this book came out, one of my assistants, who's not a very religious person, she believes in God, but she doesn't really practice any kind of serious religious or spiritual work. She looked at this book and she said to me, you know what's so sad, David? All these people I know that are waiting for joy in the promised land. And they've just lost 85 years here of the heaven that's here. The heaven that's right here, yes.
It makes me think of that quote that so many people use in Florida of God's waiting room.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've seen it written on my grandparents' fridge. I've seen it in too many places where that, and kind of in that generation, I think sometimes they talk that way too. So it's projecting that of what you are saying, that they're here now, but they're waiting for later. And that's just, but what about now?
But what about now?
Yeah.
So if we open up the potential that this is a form of heaven, if we open up that potential that your life is going to radically change. Because you'll start looking for reasons of why it's heaven. Can I get a yes? Yes. So write this down. Start looking for reasons on a daily basis of why you are walking in heaven right now. Okay? Like when I wrote this, and please write down reasons and look for reasons of why this is heaven right now. You're welcome. And I got to tell you how this book came about, because this is another channel. I mean, now most of my books now are channeled, quite frankly. It really is. And I woke up one day a number of years ago, and I sat down, because I journal every morning, as I mentioned. It's part of my connection to God. And I started journaling, and all of a sudden I got interrupted by this voice, an internal voice that called himself the young monk. Now, there's a little bit of a backstory to it that made sense at the time. I had been talking about going into the monastery and St. Leo's Abbey. I went up there and visited and stayed there, talked to people. I was considering becoming a monk. And one of my friends, Ardith, who lives in Gainesville, a former client, became a very best friend, called me when I started doing this research and said, hey, I've had dreams the last several weeks, and every dream you're in it dressed as a monk. Have you ever thought about becoming a monk? Is that pretty interesting? Like right there, I'm going, ooh. Do you have a camera in my house? What's going on here, right? Because I hadn't shared us. I wouldn't tell anyone I'm going to become a monk. You know, that's just not what I do. I'm not going to go around until I've done the research and know I'm going to do it. But I knew I was going to do it. And all of a sudden, Ardita said that, and I said, oh, my Lord. So I started reading constantly Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton is probably the most well-known literary monk of all times. He has written so many. He's no longer with us, but he was in Gethsemane, which is in Kentucky. It's one of the most famous monasteries in the United States. And he was so far ahead of himself in the 50s that he was going over to Japan and China to share. He was a Christian monk, and he was sharing with Buddhists and Hindus, and they were talking about their pathways, and he was coming back and writing this stuff saying, we are all the same. Like, he was so convinced. And the abbey, the head of where he was at Gethsemane, did not like the fact that Thomas Merton was interjecting and sharing and writing. He thought he should just be a monk praying, and here he is all over the world. And Thomas Merton is coming back with these incredible stories. So I'm reading Thomas Merton. Ardita tells me I'm going to be a monk. I'm thinking about becoming a monk, and then the young monk shows up in my head. And the young monk one day says to me, grab your pen and paper, we're going to go for a ride. And he shares a story. And the story in a nutshell is this. He entered the monastery to become a monk, to find heaven, and to prepare himself for heaven. But he wasn't thinking it was here. Until he went through enough trials and tribulations in the monastery that he said to himself, could I be missing the boat? I'm waiting. We're all waiting for this magical land. But could it be right here? And then every day turns into this miraculous experience for him. And I'm going to read the very last chapter, the very end of it, just to give you an idea of what is potential for all of us. The young monk had a wise old monk that was training him in the monastery. And here's the final chapter of the book. Late fall in New England brings with it a reflection of life and thought, says the young monk. On some days, from seemingly out of nowhere, an unexpected snow shower can arrive, almost stopping life in its tracks. While this may frustrate some, the sages have always looked at surprising life events as a reason to slow down and appreciate the uniqueness only change can offer in life. As he walked the path that would lead him to his favorite meditation spot, he smiled knowing that only God could create a day like today. Yesterday, 35 degrees and a chilling wind. Right now, it was 75 degrees and sunny with a gentle warm breeze that carried with it the smell of apples from an orchard just 50 yards away. I'm going to stop for a second and say, the more mindful we are, the more heaven appears. Think about that, okay? The more mindful we are, the more heaven appears. Without the opposites, he thought, we could never appreciate a day like this, a day that was meant to dance. Now remember, he's an old monk now, okay? And he's thinking of dancing. He laughed out loud, threw his arms up to the sky, and did just that. While the young monk had greatly aged over the years, his spirit was that of a 10-year-old. Think heaven, think youth. Bless me indeed, Lord, he shouted at the top of his lungs, laughing hysterically at the freedom he felt within. This was a freedom he knew that could only come from practicing the 15 teachings to living a more spiritual life that he had just compiled for his newest book. With outstretched arms, he spun in a circle like a whirling dervish, intoxicated by the sound of the brook, the scent of fall, and the joy that emanated from his soul. Bless me indeed, he cried again. Oh Lord, how you bless me with this day, this feeling of heaven on earth. Years ago at the same place, the old monk had appeared,